So I'm gonna, as always, I will recite the ayat, and then we will begin our discussion, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سأرهقه صعودا إنه فكر وقدر فقتل كيف قدر ثم قتل كيف قدر ثم نظر ثم عبس وبصر ثم أدبر واستكبر فقال إن هذا إلا سحر يؤثر إن هذا إلا قول البشر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. So we had translated these ayat in the last discussion. We said that there is a contrast happening in these set of ayat and the ayat before that, where Walid bin Mughira, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that I gave Walid so many things. I gave him money, I gave him these 10 sons that he had, and I made life very, very easy for him. And now there's a contrast. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that because he was so stubborn, and we talked about stubbornness and we talked about greed, that now I will make his life very, very difficult. Why? Because he thought of this plot, he thought of this plan, and then we talked about فَقُتِلَ كَيْفَ قَدَّرَ ثُمَّ قُتِلَ كَيْفَ قَدَّرَ. We talked about this last session as well. ثُمَّ نَظَرَ ثُمَّ عَبَسَ وَبَصَرَ. Then he looked around and he made this frown. He had a frown on his face and a sort of face of disgust on his, a look of disgust on his face. And then he turned around and he, pretended to be sort of, he showed arrogance. And what did he say? He said, "In hada illa sihrun yu'thar." This is nothing but magic. Okay, it's a magic which is taking its toll and taking its effect. In hada illa qawlul bashar. It is nothing but the qawl of a bashar. There's nothing, this word that this man is saying, it's nothing but the words of a human. We talked about the whole discussion of magic. Over there, I will just give one sort of reminder, just an additional point about the whole magic discussion we had last week on the occult sciences and the history of the occult sciences and everything, is that the point was not to sort of deny or accept whether, those discussions that we had, whether they had any reality or not. Maybe they have, maybe some of them do have reality. I personally, just my personal opinion, I don't incline towards that opinion. I don't believe a lot of that stuff has reality. I believe a lot of it is illusion. But it does not mean that there are not things that we can do or we can say and utter whose causes we cannot see, and then they have some effect. Okay, and I said in Islam, if you are a Muslim and you look at the tradition, there are many things. I talked about, for example, in our hadith tradition, I talked about the turba of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, for example. Many narrations say that if you take the turba and you mix a little bit of it in the water, in some sort of liquid, and you drink it with the niyat of shafa'ah. So niyat of, if you're sick, if you drink it with the niyat of, seeking cure, it will cure you. Now, scientists may want to test that in a laboratory and they will be unable to find any specific cause. Okay, so maybe this is a cause which we cannot see, because sometimes it will not work. Even in our own hadith, it says sometimes it doesn't work. Alright, so you might not be able to subjugate that to a in a scientific laboratory, for example. So there are these hidden causes that we may not see. But the whole point of that whole discussion was that how are we gonna verify whether something is real or not? And the whole point was that, look, some of the mystics and some of these people who are into esoteric sciences, they don't seem to be giving us any proof for a lot of their claims. Okay, either they are visions or dreams or whatever it is. I take that stuff with a grain of salt, and that's why I actually had to quote some of the spells from Shamsul Ma'arif, just to kind of make you guys laugh. And then you guys, if somebody still believes it, then God saved you. But my point is, people did believe in it. Okay, today nobody believes in it, or most people don't believe in it. I don't believe in it, and I think we shouldn't really believe in it because there's no proof for any of that stuff. Anyways, so that was about just a point about the occult sciences from the previous discussion. Today we want to have a little bit. So as always, there's a little bit of an ethical discussion, epistemic sometimes discussion, and then we have a technical discussion. This description of Walid is very interesting, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I will make his life very, very difficult. Why? Because he thought of a plot and he came up with a plan. Okay, he didn't just think, he actually came up with a plan. And Allah said, how dare he, what does he think he is? How could he even, dare think of a plot against the Prophet or against the Quran? And he sort of looked around, and then he frowned and he had a look of disgust, and he turned his back on the Prophet, and he said very arrogantly that this is magic. Okay? This Walid, right, it's a very interesting visual description that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning of him. It shows that he had a lot of frustration and a lot of agitation on his face, knowing or seeing the truth. Okay? And we already mentioned that he did have this issue of greed, he did have this issue of stubbornness, which the Quran is telling us. Okay? Quran is telling us that he was stubborn and he was greedy. And then you see his agitation, even though he is seeing and confronting the truth. Okay, that's why he would be considered a kafir, because he knows the truth and he is concealing it. But I want to do a little bit of a sort of thought experiment, right? And I want us to realize one thing. Okay, when we look at opponents in Islamic history, okay, or enemies in Islamic history, you can take it if you're, if as a Shia, for example, you may have even issues with the first three caliphs, or you may have issue with some of the companions, or even people like, let's say, Muawiyah, Yazid, which are very clear, opponents and enemies. And then you have these earlier enemies in the time of Mecca. You gotta understand one thing, history was not written from their perspective. Okay? History is not being written from their perspective. We don't know why is Walid acting this way. Yeah, Allah told us he's stubborn and he's greedy, but it's not the case that Walid bin Mughira came and he wrote an entire, treatise on, what were your reasons? Why were you behaving this way? Was it really your greed? Were you really willing to risk your afterlife, for greed and for being stubborn? Okay? Nobody actually went and interviewed some of these munafiqeen and then recorded their history. The people who recorded the history was actually us. The Muslims recorded their history. And there is a problem that sometimes happens in this, because the one who is victorious writes the history. A problem that ends up happening is we sometimes see these enemies and opponents as fools, right? They're just you look at the story and you're like, yeah, this guy was just a fool. The truth is so clear in front of him, how could he not accept it? What a loser, right? And we begin to belittle, not belittle, we begin to sort of not understand how perhaps we would have been if we were in that situation. Okay? This is the sort of scary part to this all of this thing, because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning these stories for us, sometimes we forget that these people like Walid or other munafiqeen, for example, or other disbelievers, if we were in that situation, we think that we would not have behaved this way. Look at the context of Walid, right? Walid is a senior individual in Mecca. He's the richest man. And he has been following the tradition of his ancestors for centuries. If you had attended the Seerah in the month of Ramadan, I talked about the pre-Islamic Arabia. For centuries and centuries, they were believing in the same thing. Okay, like most of us have been believing the same thing because our ancestors are believing in it. Same thing for Walid and most people in Arabia. And now someone from within their own nation, their own tribe, their own sort of ethnicity, their own person that speaks their own language, who they have seen grown up in front of them. Okay, they saw this boy, he was an orphan, he never went to any school like that, didn't have schooling, and he grew up in front of them. Yeah, he was a nice person, he was a shepherd, he was good in trading, business, whatnot. But he is coming with a very extraordinary claim, a metaphysical claim, the Quran, angels, this, that. If someone like this today comes in our society from within us, if I don't know, one of my friends comes tomorrow and tells me this, I would just laugh. I would literally laugh on his face. I'm like, what are you talking about? Okay? So look guys, this is the society. A person from within them. If somebody comes from outside, there still might be an incentive, like, oh wow, some special guy is coming from outside the community, he speaks a different language. You may get a little bit more mesmerized and a little bit more inclined to believe them. But when somebody's from within you, sometimes you have a hard time accepting it. Okay? And especially in this case, the truth is very drastic. So it's a drastic change from what they were believing for centuries. And then there is that doubt at the end of the day where you end up thinking, how could my ancestors have been wrong for 500 years? Okay? All of us will question this. Okay, sometimes I tell something new to some of the brothers and they get into a shock, like, wait, so we've been wrong? It's not even 500 years. They just think, they're only 20 years old. They're like, huh? I've been wrong for 20 years? You're freaking out at 20 years. These guys are freaking out at 500 years. Okay, for 500 years we've been wrong. And these stories of the Quran again and again and again remind us that yes, you could be wrong even after 500 years. You could have been wrong. You could have been wrong even after 1,000 years. Your ancestors could have been wrong. As a matter of fact, that's literally what they say. No, our ancestors were on this. Their whole argument is that our ancestors were saying this. Okay, so this is something that is very, very interesting to sort of look at. Walid's behavior and to understand that we may actually have been the same way. Okay, don't think that Walid's just a loser, he's a fool. Allah gave him everything. He's not thinking like that. We're looking at it from outside, and Allah is actually guiding us to see it in that way. If the Quran didn't even guide us, perhaps we would have actually justified and we would have been on Walid's side actually. Okay, we might have been on Walid's side. We would have said, what's this man trying to do? He's coming and breaking all the conventions of society. Things are going the way they are. Why is he causing chaos and disruption in society? What's wrong with him? That's how we would have said, and that's how we react actually, right? The reason why I'm saying this, guys, is that we are living in a time where you are going to have scholars, intellectuals, academics, researchers, particularly I'm not even talking about outsiders, I'm talking about from within the Muslim world. Because we are in a very sensitive era right now, where things are changing so drastically, you are going to hear different opinions from scholars, our own ulama. And it is upon you to not react like Walid. What is Walid doing? Walid is actually, why is he doing kufr? Kufr, he's actually, the first step to kufr is actually doing takfir. Walid is doing takfir of the Prophet. He's trying to excommunicate him. He's trying to get him out of our sort of tribe. That was the whole plan for 10 years. And they accused him. They said, this man is just taking all of our people and, making his own cult or tribe, right? No. So the first step of kufr that he's doing is actually takfir. What we end up doing when we hear opinions, usually the opinions we hear are not even this drastic, the way Prophet is bringing a change. Opinions we hear, new ideas that we hear, we react worse than Walid sometimes. And the reaction in our communities usually to new ideas, new opinions is slander, tuhmat that they do, backbiting, rumors, name calling, he's a taghut, or I don't know, he's a this agent, he's a that agent. Literally, actually, it's the same language of the Makkans. There's nothing different. There's literally nothing different, guys. So look, don't think that you are not behaving this way. Many times we behave this way. Many times we behave this way, okay? So as the truth becomes a little bit more ambiguous, discovering it will become more complex. This is part of the narrations that we have in our hadith. As the era of ghaiba, the era of zuhur comes closer, the truth will become more ambiguous, it will become harder to discern and so on. You have to tread the path very, very carefully. Okay, you have to tread it very carefully. And remember, truth, when it goes against you, against what you have believed in for a long time, it will agitate you, it will frustrate you. Okay? Because look, guys, it's not easy to change an opinion, something that you have built for decades. Walid is not a young boy. He has built his entire life. He's probably, I don't know how old he is, 40, 50. His entire life, he has believed these things. His entire life, he has believed these things. You are asking him to go back to scratch and destroy it and rebuild. Okay? It's a challenging task. Okay, that's a challenging task. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is expecting them to do so. He's expecting them to do so. Now, I don't want to say just things that scholars may come and try to correct and fix a little bit about certain ideas that we have about Islam. Even when we are living in, let's say, the society, the Western society, this what I'm talking about right now is also true when, let's say, a scholar or a researcher or whoever, a learned person, comes and decides to critique certain ideologies that you have grown up learning in the Western world. Okay? For example, I'll give an example, right? Let's say feminism, okay? Please don't lynch me, I'm ready to fight. But let's say feminism, it's an interesting topic, okay? Some girls will say, no, what's wrong with calling myself a feminist? Even some guys call themselves feminists. And some of the stuff they say, we're saying the same thing in Islam. We have a lot of things that, especially the first wave feminism, many of the things that they were saying, we accept it, it's not a problem. But question is, let's say somebody decides to question certain assumptions that the feminist ideology was built upon. Let's assume, right? What you will notice is that you will get a very quick emotional reaction. Very quick. And it will not even be an academic discussion. It will be an onslaught. It will be an onslaught. What I'm trying to say here is that don't just assume that this happens only when a scholar comes and he says something about your Islamic practice. No. It's also even true for the ideology that you have grown up learning. If you are true and sincere and want to learn, even if, let's say, somebody is a, feminist or a social justice warrior or whatever, I don't even know all the terms nowadays, too many to keep, keep track of. Whatever position you are in, okay, let's say evolution even. It's a very interesting topic, hot topic in the university. If you deny evolution, you can lose your entire job. So anything, okay, anything that is sort of an idol in the West, if you come and raise some question or raise some, discussion about it, you will notice that we actually still believe, we behave like Walid bin Mughira over there too. Okay, and I'm myself included in these discussions I'm talking about. Okay, I may have certain ideas and beliefs that I grew up with, or learning and being bombarded with in school. I grew up with this. There's no other way that I can think of. And if you question me, I will react the same way. I'll say, "Oh, you're silly. How can you even question? It's so obvious. It's so self-evident." Okay, so look, it's both ways. Sometimes a scholar from within Islamic tradition can come and correct a certain understanding that you may have had for many years about your own Islamic belief or whatever. Or you may have certain people coming and critiquing the general ideologies that you have learned growing up in this part of the world, or any part of the world. Okay? If you are truly sincere in learning, there are a couple of preliminaries that are required. Okay, there are a couple of preliminaries that are required for it. And I'm going to quote this discussion from a scholar. His name is Sayyid Muhammad Ali Qāḍī Ṭabāṭabāʻī. He was a martyr, he was Shahid. Sayyid Ali Qāḍī Ṭabāṭabāʻī is not the Qāḍī Ṭabāṭabāʻī, the mystic in Najaf. This is a different Sayyid Ali Qāḍī Ṭabāṭabāʻī. There's before him, in the 9th century Hijri, which is 15th century, there's a very famous theologian, Fadl Miqdad as-Suyuri. Fadl Miqdad as-Suyuri is a scholar of Hilla, okay? And he has a book called Al-Lawāmi' al-Ilāhiyya fil Mabāḥith al-Kalamiyya. He has this book, and Sayyid Qāḍī Ṭabāṭabāʻī writes footnotes on this book. Okay, it's a theology book. And in the beginning of this book, he talks about how to actually build your belief system and what preliminaries are required. I'm not going to say this is easy to do. I'm not going to say that. And the Quran is also not expecting the munafiqeen to, the kuffar to accept this overnight. It will take them time as well. But this is something that it seems that Islam does expect from all humans. That look, your belief should be refined, but it needs these preliminaries. These are required. Just a little bit about Sayyid Ali Qāḍī Ṭabāṭabāʻī, just so you know who this person was. Sayyid Ali Qāḍī Ṭabāṭabāʻī, he was in Qom. In 1940, he started his studies in Qom. Later on, after 10 years, he moved to Najaf, and he studied under Ayatollah Khoyi and all the ulama there. Then he came back. He was very pro-revolution. Okay, very pro-revolution. And the Shah had exiled him to different cities. So first he exiled him to Kirman, and then he exiled him to Zanjan. Okay. Now, just a very interesting point for you all. You will notice in the khatarat. So many ulama they write khatarat, memoirs. Okay, memoirs, right? Many ulama have memories written down, and they're published in books. Okay. For example, Ayatollah Muntaziri has like 8-9 volumes of memoirs from before the revolution, his time in prison, after the revolution, what happened. These are published, okay? Many ulama write this. In the memoirs of Ayatollah Ansari Shirazi, one of the students of Allāmah Ṭabāṭabāʻī, I read this in his memoirs. He says that when we were taken to the jail in Tehran, Savak, the intelligence took us to the jail. He says we ended up doing a mubahatha, a religious study, because they're not in the houses, they're in jail now. And it's the harshest jail in Iran at that time. The Savak prison was really brutal. Maybe some of you have gone to Tehran and have seen it. They said we ended up doing mubahasa on the entire, or most of the book called Jawahirul Kalam. Jawahirul Kalam is like, I don't know, 50 volumes of like detailed fiqh, jurisprudence, very intense. So these ulama used even these opportunities of hardship, like you're in jail, the guy is in literally like solitary confinement with another person. He says we used that as an opportunity to study. So they ended up, the 2-3 years that they were in jail, in the harshest jail, they were studying. Okay, they didn't waste time. It's not like us, I'm in jail now, it's gonna sit on the bed and just chill. No, they were like, okay, wow, subhanAllah, Allah has put us in this jail, now we have even more time to study. So there's a little bit of excitement for them. Okay? Shaheed Qāḍī Ṭabāṭabāʻī does the same thing. He gets exiled to Zanjan. And I'm telling you the story of his most famous book. His most famous book is not the one I'm about to quote from. His most famous book, just a little bit background, the day of Arba'een that we commemorate, right? Arba'een, there are two sort of narratives in this, historically speaking. The main narrative that everybody agrees with is that Jabir came to Karbala on the 20th of Safar. That everybody knows, right? But there's a second narrative that says that no, even Lady Zainab Salamullah alayha and the caravan also came back on the 20th of Safar. Okay? Guys, nobody actually believed in this majority. Nobody believed in the second story. And some Zakireen started to say it, and Muhaddis Nuri, the teacher of Sheikh Abbas Qumi, who wrote Mafatihul Janan, he wrote an entire book saying this is a lie. Where did you guys come up with this? There's nowhere written in history that the caravan came back. And these guys were very smart with their calculations. So they said, look, if she went from Karbala to Kufa to Sham, and they cannot come back to Karbala in this short day. These are a caravan of women and children. It's very slow. They cannot arrive on the 20th of Safar. Okay. Anyways, that was a discussion. Shaheed Qāḍī Ṭabāṭabāʻī disagreed with Muhaddis Nuri. He says, no, the caravan came back, and I will prove it. But he didn't have any time. So what does he do? He gets exiled to Zanjan. And when he gets exiled to Zanjan, he writes in the introduction to his book, thank you Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the Shah to exile me. Now I have time, I will write a tahqiq on this. And he writes his most famous book called Tahqiq Darbare Awwal Arba'een Sayyid al-Shuhada. It's in Farsi. He writes a very, very detailed analysis and book, and he critiques Muhaddis Nuri, and he says, no, it was physically possible for them to come to Karbala on the 20th of Safar, and he makes his argument. I'm just showing you that look at these ulama. Even these hardships, they use these as opportunities. So this book, which is the most important book that proves that they came to Karbala, he wrote it in exile. And he writes in the beginning, Alhamdulillah, shukar hai, Shah has exiled me, now finally I have time to write the book. He became the first Imam Jummah. After the revolution, Imam Khomeini sent him to Tabriz. Over there, Tabriz, I have seen, they have a statue of him as well. And he is the first Imam Jummah to be Shaheed after the revolution. 1979, he was killed. November 1979, he was assassinated by the Munafiqeen. So this was just a little bit of his background. So now, what does he say? He says, if you want to build a belief system on any ideology, you need these 5-6 preliminaries. Okay, 5-6 preliminaries for reflection. Number one, and this is primarily for your, as I said, ideologies, usuluddin, fundamentals, okay, not for taqlidi topics. Who should I follow for marja? No. Your fundamental beliefs. He says, to think and reflect correctly, there are a couple of preliminaries that are required. Okay, these preliminaries are numerous, and if even one of these is not adopted, a person will not be able to reach the truth. Number one, you must leave all intolerance. Intolerance in relation to the heart is like deafness for the ears. So when you become deaf, you cannot hear anything. When you're intolerant, your heart will not even be open to hearing anything. Just as deafness stops the ears from being affected and benefiting from sound waves, even though the sound waves are present, but when you are deaf, you cannot hear, intolerance becomes an impediment from the heart benefiting and being affected by the truth. So number one thing he's saying, you got to be a little bit open to at least hearing another opinion, hearing another idea. Number two, moral braveness. That is for one, this is very difficult, by the way. Moral braveness is extremely difficult, okay? I was scared just to even mention the tahqiq of Arba'een. The youth it's okay to get away with it. That is, for one to say the truth all the time and to accept it once there is definitive proof for it. Okay, once you have proof, then don't be, oh, I don't know, maybe this, that. No, no, no. One should not doubt the truth and should not follow his or her ancestors and predecessors if what they followed goes against the truth. Look, guys, the Quran also mentions this. I had mentioned it as well. He's also mentioning that this is a huge problem. Just following whatever my ancestors did. And you make that an idol that prevents you from even hearing a second possible way of looking at things. Okay? One should not care for any sort of assault from anyone who possesses the force to oppress others. One should believe in the truth and expose the truth despite any hardship or obstacle. To possess love for the truth itself eases many hardships. If you actually have love for the truth, it will itself make it easy for you. Number 3, staying away from Hawa al-Nafs. Okay? You have to make your soul compliant to accept anything that is proven with a definitive proof, certainty. Okay? Whether it is, whether or not it is compliant with your Hawa, with your desires. Your desires may not appreciate, they may not like this truth, but well, that means you're not going to accept the truth. Okay? Number 4, to leave, indulge with just your pleasures and desires all the time. Well, if you're going to be involved in all of those things, which unfortunately, the Western world pushes you so much into that, look what he says. One's absorption in such matters will take one away from reaching the truth. Why? Especially when one spends significant amounts of time engaging in these pleasures. Okay? In his time, he says gambling. Okay? But I think all of us can maybe identify social media as a big thing today. If you're literally, on TikTok all day just like scrolling, I don't have TikTok, but I'm sure if you check your device time, most of us are probably spending hours, right? I myself, Instagram, Facebook, how much time could you have spent somewhere else? These are shahawat, okay? One must distance themselves from that, which will take them further away from their fitrah, and that which will take away their greatest possession, which is the aql. Okay, because these things are gonna mess with your aql as well. Number 5, this is also very important for our day and age, to adopt patience and steadfastness as one thinks and pursues the truth. Guys, truth is not always that easy to come. It takes time. It requires dedication. Okay, look what he says. This requires one to dedicate specific time to thinking. I don't know if we even have this culture where we take time just in our, we should have time to just think. Okay? Maybe it's not even a thing for us. Maybe we never even heard, time to think? What do you mean time to think? Yes, you should have a time where it's part of your schedule that, 9 to 9:30 p.m., it's my time to just think and reflect over myself, over my life. What am I doing? Where am I going? This is actually very important. And obviously we have the idea of muhasabah, muraqabah, these things you guys have all heard, self-accountability and so on, okay? It is definitely not rational for one to spend their entire life with things that will perish. There was a time where we used to use high five. This is even before Facebook, okay? It's perished, right? We thought high five would be the biggest thing forever. High five came, perished. Facebook, I don't even think most of the younger youth even use Facebook. I think it's a sign of you're old school nowadays, right? So we're a Facebook generation. Even that's come and perished. I don't know, other things came and perished as well, right? Some things become fads. This Clubhouse, it was all blew up. It's gone. I don't think anyone's on it. I hope no one's on it anymore, right? So it came and it perished. But we wasted so much time. But you did not dedicate time to think about matters that may be of utmost importance in the long run, right? The hours I spent on Clubhouse when it first came out, subhanAllah, I could have spent it on maybe preparing for the next Tafsir session, right? Which I have to do next week now on the last night. Number 6, last one. To clear one's heart from any sort of ulterior motives, fallacies, and bias when thinking and researching. This is huge. When you are seeking the truth and you want to, go research a new topic or investigate into a topic, you must not have an agenda or an ulterior motive, which is the case in polemics, in Shia-Sunni debates, and I don't know, whatever debates. In the debates, in the munadhara, you actually have an agenda. You need to win, okay?
And if you learn logic, you will know that winning in a debate doesn't mean you actually defeat the opponent. Winning in a debate means you convince the audience, you impress the audience. That's actually what a debate is about. It's not about whether you actually beat the opponent or not. It's about convincing the audience that yes, and then people like, oh, you roasted him. Why? And that's it. Like, as long as the people are happy, you won the debate. Okay, there's an agenda. There's a ulterior motive over here. He says one should empty their thoughts of anything that they have heard from their ancestors and close relations that was said without any proof. It should be as if the person is researching, having faced the matter for the first ever time. The only thing that should be important is gaining knowledge of the truth. These are some of the matters that are required to think and reflect correctly. To think and reflect correctly, these are some of the preliminaries. Brothers and sisters, this is not that easy to do. It actually requires training. To even implement these 6, it requires training a lot of time, because your bias and your ulterior motives, your shahawat, your hawa, is just part of you, right? So it's not that easy for you to just come one day and say, oh, I'm going to be blank and tabula rasa, and then I'm going to just research everything from scratch. It's not going to happen. You have to practice it. You have to consciously be aware of it. If one does not possess some of these, then a barrier will manifest itself between the individual and the truth. It will be as if there is a veil on top of the individual's eyes. The individual may be extremely accomplished and knowledgeable, but because of this, they will not be able to perceive and recognize the truths. Okay, so this is what Sayyid Ali Qāḍī, Shaykh Qāḍī Ṭabāṭabāʻī is saying in his theology book, that when you want to start building your belief system in usul ad-din, in theology, in these ideologies that, for example, in the Western world, what is the usul ad-din of the Western world? Liberalism, capitalism, these things are basically usul ad-din. What are the usul ad-din of the West? You grew up, guys, brothers and sisters, we grew up with these usul ad-din in this part of the world, whether you like it or not. If someone questions it, don't just assume it is right. At least hear the other opinion. At least hear a critique about it. Okay? Don't just think this is the only. Look at the way they are treating the World Cup, for example, right now in Qatar, right? No, I'm not saying anything about the abuse that happens in Middle Eastern countries. I myself lived in Middle Eastern countries. I know, the abuse that happens against, laborers and so on and so forth. But just look at, for example, the Western countries, how they are talking about the culture of Qatar. If Qatar decides to, let's say, ban certain, type of clothing or certain types of, alcohol, for example, how can you claim to be a multicultural, proponent of multiculturalism, but you are literally coming and, that whole, white man complex, in superiority complex is coming and literally they're dictating. They're not even shy about it, right? They're not even shy about it. But I'm saying you grew up in this society also adopting a lot of these ideas. So if someone decides to question or critique some of this, don't try to be like a diehard defender of it. Maybe they were wrong this whole time. Maybe just hear another opinion. You might realize that there's a lot more out there than what you currently believe and accept. Okay, so this is just an initial discussion that I wanted to have with Walid bin Mughira, because Walid is behaving in the same way. And he is behaving in this way because he has these agendas. Okay, he's not willing to reflect. For example, he has his Hawa, he has his Shahawat. Okay, he does not have any tolerance. And he has agendas, he has ulterior motives. He wants to keep his money with him. He wants to keep his wealth with him, his power, fame. These things are not allowing him to even listen to the Prophet. It's not even allowing him to listen. Okay? In fact, he's making his ugly face and he's like, I don't want to talk to you. And then he says, this is magic and this is a qawlul bashar. Okay. The next discussion, which is today's discussion, is a technical discussion. And this is about ayah 25. He says, In hadha illa qawlul bashar. By the way, just a trick for you guys. When you see a sentence start with, this is a trick for those who know Arabic. Oh no, doesn't if you know Arabic, it's a trick. Like if a sentence says in something, illa something. Okay? In, without a shadda. In something, illa something. You can remove the in and the illa, and that's what the sentence means. هذا قول البشر. هذا سحر يؤثر. Okay, this is a grammatical point. I wanted to flex some of my grammatical skills. Okay, in هذا إلا قول البشر just means هذا قول البشر. Okay, these are two negatives that come. But it's for emphasis, this is nothing except a qawl al-bashar. Okay. Qawl al-bashar, I want to talk about a very, very interesting and also an important discussion in theology, in philosophy, and also what they call contemporary theology, kalam jadid they call it. And there is some need to discuss this, because this is, when you are exposed to, let's say, Christian polemics or even atheists and so on, there is this discussion that will come to you, and that is the construction of the words of the Quran. Okay, which is, interestingly, Walid is also making the same accusation. Walid is saying these ayat are nothing but the qawl of a bashar. Okay, these are not the qawl of a god. But he's not even saying it's the qawl of an angel. He's saying this is the qawl of a human. Okay. And the question that was asked even in the earlier Islamic civilization, this question did exist. It existed and people discussed it, and very few people had a different opinion. But in today's day and age, in Christianity, in the Christian world, before, let's say, a couple hundred years ago, there were two trends that sort of emerged, right? And these trends emerged because Christianity was facing a very serious issue, an onslaught, with respects to science versus the religious text. Okay, what was happening is that science was discovering all of these things. Okay, the earth is not the center of the universe, the sun is, the earth is not flat, all of these things. And their biblical texts, at least the apparent reading of much of their biblical text, was saying otherwise. And many Christians actually believed otherwise. Okay, Galileo, we all know what they did, what the church did with these type of intellectuals, for example, or people who were saying, no, science has proven something else. The church really destroyed those people. Either killed them, executed them, imprisoned them, whatever. They did all of that. So what was the solution? Because the scientific research became so clear eventually, that it was just not feasible for people to say that the earth is flat, or that the earth is the center of the universe. It was just not feasible anymore for people to say, because it's so clear. It's like you have reached a level of certainty. So they came up with a certain solution. Okay, one solution was, I'm talking about the Christians right now. They said, well, this is all allegorical. This is, has an esoteric meaning. Ta'wil, like the way we do ta'wil and interpretation and whatnot, right? But there was a second trend, which actually became pretty common as well, and it is pretty common even today for many of them. They said, no, the books, the Torah and the Injil and the Zabur, these books, they were not God's words to begin with. Okay? What God or what the angel did is that God revealed meanings in the mind of the prophet. Meanings. Okay? For example, when I see things, meanings come to my mind. But it is the Prophet Musa alayhi salam or Prophet Isa alayhi salam that take this meaning and then they construct the language. They construct the words of that book. Because how is this going to solve anything? They say, well, this will solve the science versus religion problem. Because if Musa alayhi salam is going to construct the words, or Isa alayhi salam is going to construct the words, well, they're going to construct the words in a language which people of that time understand. Okay? So people of that time believed earth was the center of the universe and the sun is the thing that is rising and setting. Well, that's the language that they're going to speak in. Okay? So what do? You all of a sudden end up contextualizing all the language. What really matters at the end of the day is the meaning behind all of this, not the text. The word doesn't really matter. But they had to say that these words are not God's words. These are, because if it's God's words, then we're going to say this is all wrong. Okay? So they have to put the blame on the Prophet. Okay? This affected the Muslim world also in the 19th and particularly in the 20th century. The same discussion happened in the Muslim world. Okay? The Orientalists were coming, Western researchers were coming, and they said that the Quran has many scientific mistakes in it. The Hadith also, many scientific mistakes in it. So what did the Muslims say? Well, same thing. They looked at the Christians. They said, what are the Christians doing? So they said, okay, let's borrow some of their ideas. Christians are saying either there's ta'wil, some sort of allegorical interpretation. Some Muslims started to say that. Some said, no, we can try and explain it through urfi language. We can say, no, the urf spoke this way, the customs was speaking in this way, meaning this is still God's word, but just the Arab spoke in this way, and it doesn't really invalidate the truth or does not invalidate anything. But there was a small group of Muslims who adopted the third opinion, and like the Christians. And so these are religious people, they're not like anti-Quran or anything. They said, no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed meanings in the mind of the Prophet or in the qalb of the Prophet. We will look at their arguments. He revealed meanings in the heart of the Prophet, and the Prophet made up the words. So the words are not Allah's. When I say words, I mean the vowels, the letters, everything. This is all the Prophets, not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's. They're not doing this to negate divinity. They're not even saying this is not a miracle. No, they're saying this is still a miracle. It's still divine text. It's still something that you have to follow and abide by. But it opens up room for contextualization, and it opens up room for them to say, yeah, if it says, the sun is setting into the water, which is one of the ayat, the sun sets into the water. Okay? Yeah, it's just, maybe at that time that's what they thought. So the Prophet said it. You see? Prophet just said it because, for example, if the Prophet, it says, look at the camel, look at the ibl, kayfa khuliqat, look at the camel, how is it created? Well, I've never seen a camel in this part of the world. Okay, so how is that ayah relevant to me? Why did the Prophet say the word camel? Well, yeah, Prophet said camel because he was in that time, and the meaning behind it is something else. The meaning is, oh Prophet, tell humanity, look at the creation, look at the animals. Prophet said camel because the Arabs are using camel, so that's the best example to give. So they said, look, we can just contextualize everything, and what really matters is the essence, which is the meaning. Okay. Is this just a contemporary opinion, or were there any ulama in the past that also had this opinion? The answer is yes, there were some ulama in the past who had this opinion, but very, very minority, very, very small. Vast majority of Muslims completely rejected this, which is what the main Muslim, and which is what we're going to defend today as well. They rejected this, okay? I'm not going to bore you with, Ibn Kullab and Ibn Sulami and this and that, or who said what view. This discussion that I'm having, by the way, is 17 hours long, okay? I'm trying to summarize it right now in 40 minutes, okay? Inshallah, one day, sometime in the future, we can have the whole 17 hours, but for now, 40 minutes will suffice. What are the four theories? Okay. Theory number one is basically the famous opinion that the meaning and the words are by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? The meanings and the words are by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning Allah sends the meaning and the words to Jibreel alayhi salam, and Jibreel brings them to the Prophet. Meanings and the words. When I say words, guys, it's everything, like the vowels, the fatha, kasra, the verb, everything about it. The pronunciation, the qira'ah, everything is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second theory is what I was mentioning, that some people said that no, the meaning is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the words are by the Prophet. This is also a type of naql bil ma'na. What they say, naql bil ma'na. Meaning if I say, oh brother, guys, if I say this, guys, there's a tafsir happening tonight at Al-Mahdi. Okay, a meaning also went into your mind when I said this sentence. Someone will go and say to somebody else, yo bro, there's a tafsir happening tonight at council. Okay, he did not quote me 100%. He changed the wordings and he used the word council instead of al-Mahdi, but the meaning was transferred. Okay, naql bil ma'na, but he used different words. So second theory is saying this, the meanings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending, but the words the Prophet can change depending on the context, who he is talking to, the atmosphere, whatnot. Okay. The third theory says that the words of the Quran are actually, the meaning is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the words are Jibrail's. I don't think anyone actually held this opinion. Okay, I don't think anyone held this opinion. There's just this one ayah in which it says Jibrail is a Rasul. So some people said maybe Jibrail was constructing it, but nobody actually believed in this. Nobody believed in this. But just a theory, okay? The fourth theory is very interesting, and there are some people who believe in it, And also some non-Muslims also tell us that your prophet was coming up with this theory. This is the fourth theory, which is what? Which is that both the meaning and the words are the prophets. Okay, what do you mean? What do you mean both the? What do you mean meaning is also by the prophet? There's nothing left of the Quran at that point. They say no. So the atheist will say, yeah, this is just the prophet's own meanings and his own words. So forget them. We're not addressing them. Okay, that's just a different belief system altogether. Why are some Muslims saying this? What do they mean by this? That the meaning is also the prophet and the words are also the prophet. They say that look, the Quran was a religious experience for the prophet. So where is Allah in this whole thing? They say Allah creates an atmosphere for the prophet. Okay, He creates a certain environment for the Holy Prophet ﷺ, which evokes and creates meaning in the Prophet's mind, and then the Prophet makes that into words. Okay, religious experience it's called. It's a huge discussion in Christian theology and also contemporary theology in the Muslim world. In Iran, there's a lot of discussion on religious experience. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still involved in this process. It's still a divine text, but the meaning is the Prophet and the text is the Prophet. We are not, brothers and sisters, we are not going to discuss the third and the fourth theory today, because we don't have time. And the third theory is just nonsense. And the fourth theory, it's not that many proponents of it. Just a couple of them, but it's not anything that serious. The second one is serious. The first is obviously the one we believe in, and the second one is serious. We're going to go through the evidence of the second theory and critique it, and we're going to go through the evidence of the first theory, meaning the belief that you guys all believe in, inshallah, and we're going to go through the arguments. As a preliminary, before I do that, I had mentioned in season 1 of this tafsir that when we are discussing within, amongst Muslims, amongst your own group of, right now this discussion is happening with the Muslims. It's not happening with non-Muslims. Meaning there are some Muslims who are saying the meaning is by Allah and the words are by the Prophet. We have to see whether this belief, this claim, is it consistent with the text or no? Okay? If you believe this, does this text, when you read it, does it seem like the meaning is Allah and the words are the Prophet or no? Or are you going to come into trouble when you sort of believe in this? That's how you subjugate a claim. That's how you test it, basically. That's how you subjugate it to a trial and evaluation, basically. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. So first, let's begin with the evidence of the second theory. Okay, second theory. As I said, the second theory says that the meaning comes in the mind or the qalb of the Prophet, and the Prophet is creating the word. This is very similar to, literally it's the view, like what happens to the mystics. Okay, what do the mystics say? For example, Ibn Arabi or any of the mystics, they say we have a vision. We had a vision and then we have to, construct that vision into words. So the words are ours. So for example, sometimes in the books of Ibn Arabi, he may say, he saw, Abu Bakr on the throne of Allah or Mutawakkil on the throne of Allah. And some Shia say, oh, how dare the Hawza teach Ibn Arabi's books? Ibn Arabi is saying this. Well, the Shias will say that, look, he may have messed up in what he witnessed. In describing what he witnessed. But what he witnessed was true, but what he described, he may have made a blunder in that. That's okay, because he can make a blunder. He's not a ma'soom like that. So, same thing. But over here, Prophet is ma'soom. So he gets a meaning, but he constructs the words. Okay? What is the evidence? Do they have any evidence from the Quran? Okay, I'm not talking about philosophical evidence. They may have some philosophical evidence too. In the Quran, yes, they quote an ayah or a couple of ayat from the Quran. Surah 26, ayah 192 to 196. Okay, let's look at what it says. It says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَإِنَّهُ لَتَنزِيلُ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ نَزَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينَ عَلَى قَلْبِكَ لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُنذِرِينَ بِلِسَانٍ عَرَبِيٍّ مُبِينٍ وَإِنَّهُ لَفِي زُبُرِ الْأَوَّلِينَ. This is certainly a revelation from the Lord of the world, the Rabbul Alameen. That the Ruh al-Amin has brought it down. Let's say that's Jibreel. Ala qalbik, O Prophet, onto your heart. Okay, onto your heart, so that you may be a warner and so on and so forth. Surah Baqarah, ayah 97. قُلْ مَنْ كَانَ عَدُوًا لِجِبْرِيلَ فَإِنَّهُ نَزَّلَهُ عَلَى قَلْبِكَ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ وَهُدًى وَبُشْرَى لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Say, O Prophet, whoever is saying that they are an enemy of Jibreel should know that He revealed this Quran to your heart by Allah's will. Okay, to your heart. What happens in the heart? It seems that meanings come in your heart, not words. Words don't generally get inscribed. That's their claim. Meanings, you have feelings with your heart, love and hatred and anger. Heart is a place for this type of a feeling, and you also get sense of meaning in your heart. So this thing, well, Allah is saying, I revealed the Quran on your heart, and then you can go and say whatever you want. This one is even more important. Surah Dukhan, ayah 58. فَإِنَّمَا يَسَّرْنَاهُ بِلِسَانِكَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. Okay? We have made this Quran easy in your own language. So prophets, so they may be mindful. There's a couple of ayat that use this phrase, Taysir bil lisan, meaning it is made easy for you on your own tongue. Like you can basically construct it the way you want. So it is revealed on your qalb, and now we have made it easy on you to basically say it in whatever way you want to say it. Okay, you say it the way you want to say it, in your language, okay, in your conventions. Okay. Question, what do these ayah really prove that the Quran meaning was sent to the Prophet and the words are by the Prophet? Do they really prove that? Okay. There are some ishkalat, observations, mulahadat, okay. Number one, some ulama said, no, this has nothing to do with the nuzul ma'nawi. This has nothing to do with the Quran just being revealed in the meaning and then the Prophet having to create words. They said no. They said qalb over here just means that, O Prophet, we have revealed this Quran on your heart so that you can memorize it. Meaning the words, meaning and the words, so you can memorize it. So this ayah has nothing to do with nuzul ma'nawi. Nuzul ma'nawi means the revelation of meaning. Nuzul lafzi means the revelation of words as well. Okay. But guys, if we answer them in this way and we say that this ayah is about memorizing, the problem is there's nothing in this ayah talking about memorizing. To be very honest, okay. It says we reveal it on your heart. What does it have to do with memorizing? It's a desperate attempt. It's not a strong argument. It's not a strong rebuttal. Okay. Second rebuttal to them, some scholars said that look, qalb is not just some biological heart or something. So it doesn't mean it was revealed on your biological heart. Nowhere in the Quran does that meaning. Do you understand that meaning? Qalb in the Quran, when you look at it, you notice that it is a place where you even do ta'aqqul, where there is aql, there is tamyiz, meaning you are able to differentiate truth and falsehood. Okay, there is fahm that is happening in the aql. Aql seems to be this locus, this location, which is a place which distinguishes between truth and falsehood in the Quranic language. So when it says here that نَزَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينُ عَلَى قَلْبِكَ, okay, meaning it is revealed on your heart, meaning it is revealed in a place where you can understand this is the truth. Okay, this meaning is much better than the first. This rebuttal is much better than the first rebuttal. That said, oh, it means you gotta memorize it. No, this is actually in line with the Arabic language, the literature, and the Quranic language. Okay. So this is sort of a rebuttal. It's not consistent. You're not making any much. It's not a very their argument is not so strong right now. Third rebuttal that we can give. Okay. Why? Because these guys were saying that when something is revealed on the heart, it is revelation by meaning. And the Prophet ﷺ has to create the words. My question is this. Why can't Allah reveal and inscribe words on the heart as well? Okay? This is when we used to study philosophy, when the first philosopher comes, makes a big claim, I don't know, asalatul wujud or something, some crazy claim, and you get overwhelmed by it. It's scary. Wow, yeah, something is this claim, and then you would think about it and so on, and the teacher would just come and question and make you ask this question like, wait, why are they even assuming that this has to be this way? And you're like, oh yeah, wait, I never even thought about that. So this is one of those. They just assumed if something is revealed on the heart, it has to be in meaning. It cannot be words. Okay, so when I was saying it, it seems like all of you were like, yeah, man, it's on the heart. It has to be the meaning. Question, wait, who said it just has to be meaning? Why can't it be the words? What is so philosophically impossible for words to be inscribed on the heart? Not biological heart, whatever this metaphysical heart is. Don't you see dreams? And then you wake up from a dream and you actually remember words and sentences and conversations? Okay, is dream happening in this physical world? No. It's happening in some metaphysical realm. Your ruh, for example, is seeing a dream. In the dream, you can wake up from your dream and you can give us entire conversations. Oh, I saw Aristotle and I was doing this. Like Suhrawardi sees Aristotle. And he says Aristotle believed in the same thing I believed in. So, okay. So these people have dreams and they quote entire conversations and debates and dialogues. Or I think Suhrawardi wrestled with Aristotle, something like that. I'm forgetting right now. Okay. There's nothing in this assumption that says that you have to. It should just be nuzul ma'nawi in the qalb. There is a much more complicated answer to this, but I'm looking at the crowd. Inshallah, maybe some other time. This is Mullah Sadra's book, because it has to do with a little bit of ilm huduri, knowledge by presence. Can you have knowledge by presence of quiddities, and so on and so forth. I will leave it, inshallah, for another time and maybe even another crowd. But Allama Ṭabāṭabāʻī has a view here in volume 15 of his Al-Mizan about the same. So look, this is as I said, this theory is out there and ulama have discussed it. So Allama Ṭabāṭabāʻī discusses it. He says, these verses that talk about nuzul on the qalb, nuzul that is happening on the heart, okay? He says that, look, this revelation would be sent on the heart, not to his ears. Okay? Remember, Allama Ṭabāṭabāʻī is a philosopher. The philosophers have a whole different world on what they believe about revelation and so on. So there is that, other discussion as well. But the question to Allama Ṭabāṭabāʻī is, wait, what about all the ahadith that say that when the revelation would come, the Prophet would hear the sounds? Like, we have tons of narrations. What do you do with them? He just rejects all of them? He says, no, I don't reject them. I try to reconcile them. And I say that, look, Allama Ṭabāṭabāʻī says that. He says, look, the Prophet had, almost like a sixth sense, if you want to call it. Okay? He had another sense by which he could hear and even see, which nobody else could hear and see. So when the angels are coming, they are coming on the heart, but there's a sixth sense in the heart by which you can actually hear the words and, whatever, see the words or hear the words, okay? Why can you not just say it's physical? What's the problem? Allama Ṭabāṭabāʻī just say it's a physical thing. He heard the words in his ears. He says, well, if revelation was coming to the ears of the Prophet and the Prophet could hear it, how come nobody else could hear it? Okay, nobody else seems to have heard it. Because it says that only the Prophet would hear the revelation of Jibreel. Okay. And then he gives a critique on himself and he says, Allah could have made the Prophet hear it and made other people deaf for like 2 minutes. What's the problem? Well, Allama says, there will be a problem that will happen and the Westerners will use that against you. He says, if you say this, you are going to open the door to skepticism. Okay? You're going to open the door to skepticism. The people can always say, well, we never saw the Prophet. We never heard the Prophet. Maybe I'm not thinking correctly. Maybe I can't hear properly. Basically, you're trying to tell me, basically you're saying, Allama Ṭabāṭabāʻī is saying, basically you're going to end up telling me, Allah created me with this system of hearing, and He's making me not hear a sound wave. So it doesn't function. And I can start questioning everything. Maybe somebody said something behind the door, but I didn't hear it. You see, like you're gonna start doubting your own senses. Okay? Allama Ṭabāṭabāʻī says this. So he says, look, it cannot be physical. It must be something on the heart. It is, it's not physical. It's something on the heart, but it was this sixth sense that the Prophet hears. And he says all those narrations that say the Prophet would hear it, sama', to hear it. He says, yeah, it's talking about that sixth sense. Okay, that's what he says. But we have some observations on Allama Ṭabāṭabāʻī. Allama Ṭabāṭabāʻī Tafsir 30 years ago. Many new scholars have come and given some observations. Question one, critique on Allama Ṭabāṭabāʻī. If you say all those narrations that say the Prophet hears the wahi, you're going to have to say all of those narrations are metaphorical. I don't know who came to my one last ever Thursday night that I did here on metaphors. You see that discussion, all those things are relevant in this whole field. You will end up saying it's a metaphor. And for a metaphor, you need evidence for it. You can't just say the whole language of Arabic is just all the time using metaphors. They're saying sama'a, yasma'u, he's hearing. How is this metaphor for a heart, and then the heart is hearing the sixth sense? Nobody in Arabia understands this. Okay, so that's one sort of observation. Second is, this will not create a empirical or epistemic issue or skepticism. We are not saying that people are gonna start saying, oh, I make mistakes in my hearing. You know, the Prophet is hearing something, but I misheard it or something. We're not saying that, ﷺ. We are saying, why is it not possible that the Prophet was given a ability to hear a certain level of sound wave? Didn't Prophet Sulaiman also hear the sound of the ants and the animals? Prophet Sulaiman was talking to animals and, other creation. Nobody ever at his time said, oh, maybe my senses are not working. No. It was just known that Prophet Sulaiman has an extra ability. Right now, certain animals can hear certain sounds you cannot hear. Or you can hear certain sounds other animals cannot hear. This doesn't mean that your senses are making mistakes. It's not about making mistakes. It's just about your ability. So it's possible that the Prophet was given a certain ability in his ears where he could physically hear the sound waves of Jibreel coming and basically answering. Okay, so khulasa of all of this, that look, the second theory, which said that these are the ayat that say the nuzul on the qalb proves that this was the meaning and the words were the Prophets. It's not that strong. They made a whole worldview on this nowadays. It's not that strong. We can answer this. We can say nuzul qalbi. Why can the inscription not be in the heart? Okay, or for example, qalb just means a place of aql and fahm. Allah revealed it on your heart so that you can discern that this is the truth and falsehood. What's wrong with that? Okay, so this is the status of the second theory. Now we are gonna look at the evidence of the first theory. And at the same time, brothers and sisters, remember, when we are going through the evidence of the first theory, also realize that the second theory gets weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. You cannot believe that the Quran was the word of the Prophet and then these type of ayat are in the Quran. Okay? How long have I been speaking? Hour? Okay, so I have some time. There are 16 set of ayat in the Quran, 16 categories of ayat in the Quran that ulama over the centuries have used as evidence to say this is the word also of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It cannot be the word of the Prophet, because if you say it is the word of the Prophet, these 16 set of ayat, okay, so each set has tons of ayat as well, you're going to have a hard time explaining these ayat. Okay, I'm going to name all 16 categories so you have them as evidence for yourself, but I'm not going to go through every single ayah of the Quran over here. Okay, that's for some other time. But let's go through the 16. And please write this down if you can, because this, I don't know if I will ever do this again. This is, the proof and the internal evidence that shows that this is not just the word meaning of by Allah and the word of the Prophet. No. These ayat all show that the meaning is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and also the words are by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, once again, I don't want to say all 16 categories are super solid, evidence. No, some of them are strong, some of them are weaker, but there are some very interesting and important ayat. Okay, set number 1. Okay, so Quranic evidence. Oh, by the way, there's also hadith evidence. We're not going to talk about this. Quran itself, we can look at it as a text itself. Number 1. Set number 1. Quran attributes itself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? The Quran attributes, the text of the Quran attributes itself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Surah Yusuf, ayah 3. نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ بِمَا أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ. We relate to you, O Prophet, the best of the stories through what we have revealed to you from this Quran. أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن. By the way, so when I say some categories are stronger, some are weaker, if you think critically, this doesn't really prove nuzul lafzi, by the way. Okay, yeah, Allah can reveal awhayna, Allah can do wahy of the meaning. So I'm saying not all of them are strong, but ulama have used these. On the first thing, you might say, yeah, wahy, meaning and the words. No, wahy can also be just meaning. So I'm just showing you guys the intensity of the discussion. But still, set number one. These ayat can be used once you have other solid evidence, from which we will come to. Once you look at all of those, then awhayna will mean yes, also the words of the Quran. Okay, so set number one is this. Set number two, Quran attributes itself to the word qawl. Inna, Surah Muzammil that we did previously, Surah 73, Ayah 5. Inna sanulqi alayka qawlan thaqila. We will soon reveal to you a heavy qawl. Qawl is qawl. Words, statement. Okay, that seems pretty cool. Like, yeah, Allah will reveal to you the words very soon. Okay, number three, category number three, Quran attributes inzal to itself. Okay, ذَلِكَ Surah Baqarah, Ayah 176. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ نَزَّلَ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ. This is because Allah has revealed the book in truth, or with the truth. Okay, nazzala, tanzeel or inzal means Allah seems to have sent something down. Nazzala al-kitab. Kitab doesn't mean book, by the way. Kitab doesn't mean book. Okay, kitab means prescriptions. Kutiba alaykum as-siyam, for example. Kutiba alaykum. Any kitab today in Arabic means book. I'm saying in the Quran doesn't always mean book. Okay, kutiba alaykum as-siyam meaning something has been prescribed upon you. Okay, so Allah has nazzal al-kitab, meaning Allah has revealed the prescriptions of the Quranic ayat. Obviously, the most famous Surah al-Qadr, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. Inna anzalnahu, we revealed it down to you on the night of Qadr. That was set number three. Set number four, Quran attributes itself to an angel. Okay, so funny thing is, this ayah, Surah Baqarah, ayah 97, was also used by the first group, which said it is nuzul ma'nawi. But some people have said, no, this actually proves that Jibreel was bringing the Quran down. فَإِنَّهُ نَزَّلَهُ عَلَىٰ قَلْبِكَ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. Jibreel brought the Quran down to you. Set number five, Quran attributes historical details to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not the Prophet. So for example, again, Surah Yusuf, ayah number 3, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ بِمَا أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ وَإِن كُنْتَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ لَمِنَ الْغَافِلِينَ. So we sent to you, O Prophet, the best of stories through our revelation of this Quran, even though you didn't know these stories before. Okay, so that means the stories and the qissa itself is coming. The story itself is coming. And وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ, and you were unaware of this. Okay? Set number 6. There are some ayat of the Quran where apparently the Quran condemns, or not condemns is not a right word, but tells the Prophet off. I don't know how to say it more respectfully than that. Allah says, "O Prophet, don't do this. O Prophet, why are you doing this? O Prophet, don't do this." For example, Surah al-Tahrim, first ayah. Ya ayyuhan nabi, lima tuharrimu ma ahallallahu laka tabtaghi mardata azwajik wallahu ghafurur rahim. O Prophet, why do you prohibit yourself from that which Allah has made lawful to you, seeking to please your wives? This is the whole story in Surah al-Tahrim. Maybe one day, inshallah, we'll talk about what is this ayah. But if this is the Prophet's own words, so what Prophet is talking, how is the Prophet talking about himself like this? Ya ayyuhan nabi lima tuharrim, like who's he talking to? Right? So it's a little bit of inconsistency if you say that the words are also, the meaning is by by Allah and the words are the Prophets. Okay, if it's the words of the Prophet, then he would not talk like this. He's addressing some Nabi. He should be addressing himself. Right? Surah 17, ayah 73-74 is وَإِن كَادُوا لِيَفْتِنُونَكَ عَنِ الَّذِي أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ لِتَفْتَرِيَ عَلَيْنَا غَيْرَهُ وَإِذًا لَاتَّخَذُوكَ خَلِيلًا وَلَوْلَا أَن ثَبَّتْنَاكَ لَقَدْ كِدْتَ تَرَكْنَا إِلَيْهِمْ شَيْئًا قَلِيلًا. This is a very interesting ayah. Surah 17, ayah 73, 74. O Prophet, surely they were about to lure you away from what we have revealed to you. Okay, أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ. So that you forge something else against us. The mushrikeen were putting so much pressure. O Prophet, they were about to lure you away. And in that case, they would have certainly made you a close friend. They would have made you their ally. Had we not made you firm, it was likely that you would have inclined towards them a little bit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, the Prophet did not have any inclination towards the mushrikeen, right? Allah is saying that was because of me. If I was not involved with all that pressure of a decade, you would have inclined towards them a little bit. You would have said, maybe, let me just listen to them a little bit. Let me do a little bit of a bargain over here. Allah says, no, I did this for you and I'm the one who revealed the Quran to you. Set number 7, Quranic verses speaking of. So this idea that there were times where the wahi was cancelled, like temporary stopped, and then it came again, temporary stopped, came back again. So some ulama use this. مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Okay, O Prophet, your Lord has not abandoned you, nor has he become hateful of you. There were times where the revelation was stopped, and the Prophet is wondering, waiting for revelation to come. And these type of ayat are used to say, no, both the meaning and the words are used. Number 8, confessions by the Prophet. There are verses where the Prophet himself confesses. These verses are from Allah and he cannot change anything in them. Surah 10, ayah 15. وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا بَيِّنَاتٍ قَالَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ لِقَاءَنَا ائْتِ بِقُرْآنٍ غَيْرَ هَذَا أَوْ بَدِّلْهُ. People who did not like the Quran, they will say, bring another Quran or change this around, change it up. قُلْ مَا يَكُونُ لِي أَنْ أُبَدِّلَهُ مِنْ تِلْقَاءِ نَفْسِي. It is not for me to change it on my own accord. I only follow what is revealed to me. إِلَّا مَا يُوحَى إِلَيَّ. I only say what is revealed to me. Okay, and if I were to change it, I fear the punishment. Okay, it seems that very clear, like they're asking him to change the words. He's saying, I can't change it. This is what Allah has revealed to me. This is pretty strong. This one is not bad. Set number 9. There are some ayat where the prophets are seeing angels for the first time. Not Prophet Muhammad, but Prophet Lut over here, who are coming with some sort of revelation, some sort of message, and they are scared. They don't know what's going on. So it's like as the first time they're seeing an angel in real life. So Prophet Lut, the whole story of Lut, when they come, وَلَمَّا جَاءَتْ رُسُلُنَا لُوطًا سِيَ بِهِمْ وَضَاقَ بِهِمْ ذَرْعًا وَقَالَ هَذَا يَوْمٌ عَسِيبٌ. The angel said, O Lut, we are the messengers of your Lord. They will never reach you. So travel with your family in the dark of night and do not let any one of you look back except your wife. Okay? So the ayat goes on, both for Prophet Ibrahim and for Prophet Lut. The first time they see the angels, they get a little bit like, who are you? Like freaking out. Okay? So some ulama said that this also proves that, look, angels are coming with the revelation. They are the ones talking to the prophets. Okay? Number 10, set number 10. So this is probably, one of the main, probably the strongest set. Okay. Until now, I will tell you it was not that strong. I don't know, maybe some of you are thinking. But these are the ayat. This set is probably the strongest, one of the strongest proofs. Attribution of qira'ah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qira'ah. Okay. Qira'ah. Okay. For example, Surah 87, verse 6. سَنُقْرِئُكَ فَلَا تَنْسَى. We will make you recite, and so you will not forget. Okay? Qira'ah means to collect and gather something together besides one another. Qira'ah, when you do qira'ah of the Quran or qira'ah of something, it's when you, in the classical Arabic dictionaries, qira'ah means you gather something, and you basically, in this situation, you gather something, you put it besides one together. Qira'ah of a text or qira'ah of a speech means you put together the words and then you utter them. So when it says سَنُقْرِئُكَ, it means Allah will gather the words for you and He will make you recite it. This is pretty solid for the fact that Allah is putting what does qira'ah mean otherwise? Allah will put the meanings in your mind together. You read it. Surah 75, ayah 16, ayah 17. لَا تُحَرِّكْ بِهِ لِسَانَكَ لِتَعْجَلْ بِهِ إِنَّ عَلَيْنَا جَمْعَهُ وَقُرْآنَهُ. This is pretty good. Do not rush your tongue. Okay? Do not say the words quickly. Because obviously we have already told you the words, do not say it quickly. Surely upon us is the gathering, jam'uhu wa Qur'anahu. Qur'anahu means, and the recital of it, or to the clear recital of it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself is saying, don't, O Prophet, you don't say the Quran, don't be hasty in saying the Quran. Let us reveal the set of ayat together. It is upon us to gather it and to make it clear, and then you can utter the ayat. Okay, this is pretty solid. Set number 11, attribution of tilawa to Allah. Okay, this is also pretty good. Okay, ذَلِكَ نَتْلُوهُ عَلَيْكَ مِنَ الْآيَاتِ وَالذِّكْرِ الْحَكِيمِ Surah al-Imran, ayah 58. We do tilawa. Allah says, we do tilawa of this to you, O Prophet, as one of the signs and as a wise reminder. Okay? So tilawa is very clear. Tilawat, recitation. Set number 12. Quran attributes itself as a kitab and suhuf. Suhuf definitely is a book. Okay, suhuf is definitely some sort of a physical book with inscription in it. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Surely that is the book. That is the book. Okay, there is no doubt in it. In the book, obviously something is inscribed. The book is not just nothing fluff. Something is written in that book. Okay. Surah Bayyina. This is very, very important. This ayah. Surah Bayyina, ayah 1 and 2. لم يكن الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب والمشركين منفكين حتى تأتيهم البينة رسول من الله يتلو صحفا مطهرة. The disbelievers from the Ahlul Kitab and the Mushrikeen, they are not going to desist. They're not going to believe you until a clear proof came to them. What is the clear proof? A messenger from Allah who will recite the Suhufam Mutahhara, the purified scrolls, purified scriptures. Okay, this is not something the Prophet is making. No, he is coming with some suhuf. Set number 13, almost done. Set number 13, Quran calls itself an Arabic book. إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. Surely we sent it down as a Arabic Quran, as a clear Quran, so that you may understand. Set number 14, Quran attributes itself as a kalam or a hadith. فَذَرْنِي وَمَنْ يُكَذِّبُ بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ Hadith. Okay, so Surah 68, ayah 44. So leave to me, O Prophet, those who reject this hadith. Hadith, they say it's some sort of a kalam, some sort of a creation. Okay. Set number 15, second last set, is when the Quran calls itself the Quran, which is the same as the Surah Yusuf that we did. And the last one, I'm not going to explain it, but it's basically some ulama have said that the Quran refers in Surah al-Imran, very famous ayah. It says that the Quran has ayat which are muhkamat and ayat which are mutashabih. Clear verses and ambiguous verses. This ayah, inshallah, is an entire world on its own. But they said this ayah also proves that the word was also by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because they say, look, meaning is clear for you. It is words that become clear and ambiguous. Okay, many times you have meaning, the meaning is very clear for you. Okay, many students in school, for example, when I ask them a question, they know the meaning, but when they utter a word, I'm like, look, I did not understand what you are saying, right? I did not understand what you are saying, because the words they are using are not always clear. They're using ambiguous words. So this description, this sort of adjective, mutashabih and muhkam, is an adjective, it's a sifa that is used for words itself. So Allah says, I revealed in Quran, and the ayat, some are muhkamat, some are mutashabih, and that means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed words in the Quran. So the conclusion that we want to take from this is that if you look at this entire set of ayat, all of these ayat that we have over here, you will notice, okay, even if you don't like all the arguments, but you take Surah Qiyamah, ayah 16 and 17 from set number 10, and Surah Bayyina, ayah number 1 and 2 in set number 12, some ayat from set 13 and some from set 14, they are very, very inconsistent with the second theory. Okay? You cannot say Nuzul Ma'nawi and the Prophet made up the ayat and then explain and interpret those ayat in a consistent way. So what we say is that these set of ayat solidly show and demonstrate that there is the words of the Quran are also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's. Once you have used those ayat as proof, then everything else
all the other ayat that were, you were not so happy and convinced about, they basically become shahid or shawahid. Basically, shawahid is like extra evidence or testimonial evidence. I don't know how you want to translate that, but corroboratory evidence. It corroborates with your main evidence, basically. So that's why when it says awhayna, well, now you have already proven from elsewhere that the words were also revealed. So now when it says awhayna or anzalna, it's very clear for you that it also means revelation of the words as well. So alhamdulillah, we have finished our discussion today. Next discussion, we will inshallah try and wrap up Surah al-Muddaththir, and we will do a little bit of a discussion next session on a discussion from tarbiyah, ta'aleem and tarbiyah, because one of the points I had mentioned is that, look, these ayat are so harsh and so severe, and is a beginning of tabligh, beginning of the da'wah of Islam. You would assume that when you do da'wah, you want to do it with love and care, and you want to welcome these people. From the beginning of the tafsir session, all we've been hearing is, we will send you to hell, we'll grab you by the forelock, and we will smash you, and the angels of hell will come, and what's going on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is this? This is how you invite people to Islam? So we will talk over there that, look, why is it starting from inzar, and when does it, when do you have to use harsh and precautionary language, and when you should use the language of love, and so on and so forth. There is one quote from Sayyid Mutahhari in his book, Training and Education. I will quote from there to show that no, because of the context of the early Arabian society, the mushrikeen, you had to use harsh language. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had to use harsh language for them. Later on, when the Ahlul Kitab come, you notice there is peaceful language with them, trying to invite them to Islam and so on. That will be the one discussion. And a second discussion, which is always a technical discussion that we do. So one akhlaqi, one technical, is gonna be based on this ayah over here that says that there are, it talks about the description of hell, and it says that عَلَيْهَا تِسْعَةَ عَشَرَ, that in this hellfire there are 19 angels. Okay? There's a lot of mystery about this number. Why 19? Does it appear in any biblical text? What is this 19 number? But I will take that ayah and talk about something else altogether, which is the role of the intellect and the text in dealing with religion. What is the role of submission in Islam, and so on and so forth. Inshallah, I will talk about that in the next session. And if we are able to finish it, inshallah, I hope we are able to finish it, then we will have one last session left, and we will start Surah al-Masad. Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab, inshallah. So this is it.